Today we're taking a look at Fujifilm, what camera you might want to go with, and all the lenses as well. Right on Fujifilm's website, you got the XH2, which is very expensive down the line. I think we're going to be looking at more so the XT32, potentially the X200 and the XE4 are options, but as far as I can tell right now, these are not available in the United States. Maybe they're available in other countries or there's some supply issue or something, but if you're looking for the cheapest new camera, potentially wait for updates to these or at least stock. Looking at Adorama, the cheapest thing in stock right now is the XT32 without a lens for $900. However, you're going to need a lens, so if you want to get a kit with a standard 1545 kit lens, it's an extra $100. This camera is going to be fine for you. It's got a decent amount of features, however it has a single card slot. Don't think it has stabilization. It does use USB-C, micro HDMI port. There is a port for a microphone. The quarter 20 is actually not in line with the lens, so keep that in mind if you're going to use this on a tripod. It might be a little bit inconvenient changing out batteries or doing any type of panorama where you want to rotate on the axis of the lens. Overall, a decent option, but it's a little pricey in my opinion for what you're getting. Looking at B&H, another very large camera seller, you can see quite a bit of stuff is not in stock, so there seems to be something going on with Fujifilm. We scroll down, we keep looking, there is the XS10 without a lens for $1,000, so it's a bit more expensive than XC30 Mark II. However, this might be a better option depending on what you're trying to do. I think this is newer, it has stabilization in the camera, which is good. I think it just has the single memory card slot, so keep that in mind. If you can spend the extra money, probably a better idea to go with this camera compared to the XT32, or consider the XS20. That's additional $300, and you also need to get a lens. Not a lot of options here on the lower end if you want to get into Fujifilm. One thing to consider is used lenses. For example, another one of my affiliates, KH, sells used cameras. Look at Fujifilm. You can see there are some reasonable deals here, and they do come with a 6-month warranty, usually depending on the condition that you select. So in this case, probably not these unless you just want something Fujifilm to get into the system. You can go as cheap as possible. Probably be fine for you depending on what you want to do. XT1, the original of the somewhat professional series of these cameras. I haven't used this one, but I did use the XT2, which we can check out. $357 for the original. XE1, don't know too much about this, but it's got the different style of body. XE10, this is the original of the XT30 series. Let's keep going here. So I probably would not get the originals of each series. Go at least for version 2 of them, so they're most likely a little bit more improved and recent. They do have the XT200, which is a relatively recent camera. You can see the prices here. So I have a like new minus for $600. Without a lens, you do get that 6-month warranty. Not a bad deal. If you want relatively cheap, consider used. In this case, probably XT200 is a decent option. I think the XT2 is a reasonable option. I did use this back when it was released. It's getting relatively old at this point, but it's a solid professional level of camera. You have the 2 card slots. You've got that 24 megapixel sensor in there, good amount of controls and flexibility with the camera. So if you're looking for something a little bit on the professional end, still relatively inexpensive. So 691 like do minus, you get the best, or drop it down to excellent for 625. Obviously this will depend on your needs. If you're trying to go more video, go for something more recent. That tends to change quite a bit within each model. Are more focused on photography, maybe consider an older camera. Yeah, looking at these prices here, it's still pretty expensive even for the used cameras. At least so far, I think the XS10 is the way to go. If you want Fujifilm trying to start off, that's going to give you the stabilization and relatively recent features in the Fujifilm camera. And then let's take a look at lenses and see what's available there. The X mount has been around quite a while, so you do have a good amount of options with lenses. First off, you can see third party is the cheapest available new lens. Obviously, I mentioned used for cameras. You can go used for lenses as well. But I'm just going to look at new lenses. So TG Artisans 27 2.8, $150. I don't know how the autofocus is with something like this. If you want the most consistency, go straight Fujifilm, but you could at least consider third-party options like this. I'm fond of Sigma, and they do have some things on this mount. Scrolling down here, our first native lens is the Fujifilm X C35 f2. Pretty reasonable price considering the crop factor. You can have a relatively normal field of view with that. I don't know specifically if it's good, but it looks like it has nice ratings, so that could be potentially a very good starter option for whatever camera you go with. The price is reasonable considering the maximum aperture. Here's another third-party brand, 85 1.8. That's going to give you a pretty narrow field of view, but the price looks good. Ratings, not the best, so at least consider that if you're looking at something cheaper, but make sure that the ratings fit your expectations. I have used the Viltrox 33, 56, and 23 on EFM mount. They're pretty decent, a little bit quirky. They did improve them through firmware. Ratings on this one look decent, at least the star rating, but you want to check it out, make sure it fits with your expectations. The price is pretty good, considering you have a f1.4 maximum aperture. 33 again is that normal field of view, although I'd probably just go with the Fujifilm specific one. Even though you lose a bit of maximum aperture, you'll most likely get the most consistency with this. Here's a Sigma 31.4. I have not used this lens, but I have used the 56 and the 16. Pretty nice lenses, relatively consistent. So if you want to go Sigma, you could check them out. I think this is the weakest one of the trio, like optically. At the very least, it's an option. You do have the larger maximum aperture, but you could either go with that or the Viltrox. We've got the Fujifilm kit lens, basically, f3.5 to 5.6 with stabilization. If you do go with XT32, if you're going to get a lens like this, get it with the camera. It'll be a lot cheaper, but at the very least, it's a decent focal length range. 50 millimeters on APS-C is decently wide, so you'll get potentially good for vlogging or whatever you want to do. This is an interesting option from Rokinon, 12 millimeter f2, so a very large maximum aperture considering how wide this lens is. Could be interesting. Ratings, it's a 4-star, which isn't ideal, but something to check out at least. Starting to get a little pricey here. Samyang is the same company basically, but a little more expensive for some reason. There's a Sigma 60mm. I have used the EFM version of this, pretty nice. I wouldn't say optically it was amazing, but good, decent, consistent lens. Yeah, prices are already getting relatively expensive considering, but you do have a good amount of options. Something like a 27 f2.8, $400. Looks pretty compact, so if you're looking for something smaller, that might be interesting for you. 16mm f2.8. Here we've got a ranged option, 50 to 230 f4.5 to 6.7 with stabilization. Price is okay considering it's telephoto, and telephoto tends to be maximum aperture range is not amazing, so it's basically like a kit lens but on the longer end. Let's keep looking. It seems like Fujifilm is on the pricier. In general, Fujifilm is on the pricier end of APS-C. If you want the look, you want the specific features of Fujifilm, you're going to have to pay for it. Obviously, I mentioned used options, so definitely consider that if you want to get in there at a lower price. But as we see here, it's already going up over $400 for a lens, and these are third parties. And Fujifilm itself will have an additional premium on top of that. So 50 f2, decent portrait lens. I can see that being a nice option if you don't want to go third party. 13mm f1.4, kind of pricey, but interesting mix of focal length and maximum aperture. Here's a reasonable kit option. So you got 18 to 50. I would have preferred something wider than 18, but it is f2.8 maximum aperture through the range, which is nice. Not the cheapest thing ever, but $550 is decently reasonable considering. If you don't mind having 16 millimeters or so on the wide end, this could potentially be an option for you. So here's a ultra wide zoom lens. We got 10 to 18 f2.8. So that's a nice combination of ultra wide plus decently large aperture. Maximum $600, but it is currently not available. More Fujifilm options, 30 f2.8, 35 1.4. Yeah, so all the more advanced, higher quality Fujifilm specific lenses are going to be pretty expensive, but we're starting to get into their official first-party options. 18f2, 62.4. So you do have a lot of purpose-built specific lenses, a lot of good options for Fujifilm considering they only do APS-C. That's a nice main benefit that I see for going Fujifilm. Also, a few third-party options with this mix of standard focal length zoom plus f2.8 maximum aperture. Yeah, so anyways, if you're looking at this system, I think going used at the moment's the best route if you can manage it, to find a good company that's offering a warranty and such. Of course, you can use eBay and stuff, but I would personally go with KH or MPB, whatever it's called, for Europe and such. They do also offer in the United States their used lenses and cameras. Not too bad. There are definitely more and more options as we go up in price, but we're up to like $800 for lenses. yeah, I don't know too much about Fujifilm. I have used the X100F for quite a while, but I eventually sold it. That's a fixed lens camera, pretty nice. And also the XA7, which is decent as well. Didn't keep it too long. That's basically the extent of my use in Fujifilm, besides doing hands-on videos at a camera shop that used to exist in the area. I did the XT2 and basically stuff of that era back then. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Scott of Banzai, thanks.